A man who needs to announce his strength is already exposed. The tension you feel is not weakness. It is the signal that your position is unstable. You watch others posture, explain, justify, demand recognition. Something in you knows the cost of that noise. Proof is requested only from those without certainty. This is not about confidence. It is about hierarchy, silence, and the quiet difference between presence and performance. There is a way to stand where no proof is required. Lesson 1. The first truth is simple. If you feel the need to prove yourself, you've already lost. The title is not a metaphor, it is a social law. The moment a man begins to explain who he has already accepted doubt into the room. Strength that must be declared is strength already questioned. Status that must be defended is status already slipping. You have seen this pattern everywhere, even if you never named it. The man who lists his achievements in conversation. The man who raises his voice to win an argument. The man who reminds others of his authority. Each word he adds is not building his position, it is leaking it. Why does the urge to prove yourself appear so suddenly? It usually arrives in small, familiar situations. A meeting where someone challenges your competence. A social setting where another man takes the center. A relationship where your decisions are questioned. In these moments, the body tightens. The mind searches for evidence. Past victories, titles, sacrifices, effort. You feel a pressure to present these facts like weapons, but the need to present them is the first concession. You are stepping onto a stage built by someone else. You are now performing for acceptance instead of occupying your place by default. Silence here feels dangerous. Silence feels like surrender. But silence is not empty. Silence is a statement. It says, I do not need to negotiate my value. Noise is bargaining. Silence is possession. Consider two men in the same room. One speaks quickly, filling every pause, making sure no doubt remains about who he is. The other speaks rarely. When he does, there is no rush, no justification, no defense. Which man do you remember when the room empties? Which man seems anchored? History has already tested this. The one who does not prove himself is assumed to have nothing to prove. The one who insists on proof is assumed to lack what he claims. This does not mean withdrawal. It means controlled presence. A man who has built something real does not carry receipts in his pocket. His results speak when required. Until then, he remains still. When you try to prove yourself, you reveal dependence on external validation. You show that your identity is still under construction, that you are seeking witnesses to your worth rather than living from it. There is a cost to constant proof. You become reactive. You monitor how others see you. You shape your behavior to manage perception. You lose the ability to act from conviction because every action is filtered through. How will this look? A man in this loop is easy to manipulate. Praise moves him. Doubt destabilizes him. He is not free. The anchor sentence is this: proof is the language of uncertainty. Once you understand this, you begin to watch your impulses, the urge to interrupt, the urge to clarify, the urge to justify. Each is a small request for permission to exist as you are. Discipline is learning to let these urges pass without acting on them, to stay seated when your ego wants to stand, to let a misunderstanding remain when correcting it would only serve pride, to allow others to underestimate you until reality corrects them on its own. This is uncomfortable. That discomfort is not damage. It is the nervous system adjusting to a higher standard. Most men never cross this threshold. They spend their lives explaining, announcing, defending, performing. They believe this is strength. It is dependency in disguise. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, not because you are weak, but because you accepted a game where your worth is decided by the crowd. The man who has already won does not enter that arena. He lets the arena dissolve around him as he walks through without asking for applause, without demanding belief, without presenting evidence, leaving behind only the quiet weight of someone who does not require agreement to exist. Lesson 2. The second truth follows naturally. If you need to explain yourself, you've already stepped down. Explanation is never neutral, it is a response to doubt. It appears only when someone questions your position, your decision, your character, or your worth. The moment you begin to explain, you accept their frame. You accept that your stance requires justification. This is how a man quietly abandons the ground he was standing on. Not through defeat, through compliance. Watch how this plays out in ordinary life. A colleague challenges your choice in a meeting. Before you speak, there is a brief silence. In that silence, there are two paths. One is to rest in your decision, to state it once without ornament. The other is to open a chain of reasons, background, effort, intention, context. Most choose the second path. They believe clarity will secure respect. Instead, they invite negotiation. They invite counter-arguments. They signal that the decision is still soft. A man who is certain does not build scaffolding around his words. He places them and lets them stand. A man who is unsure adds support beams, footnotes, emotional disclaimers. He works harder for the same sentence. He believes effort will replace authority. It never does. Why is explanation such a trap? Because it puts you on trial. Every reason you offer can be dissected. Every justification can be questioned. You move from sovereign to defendant without noticing the shift. Now the other person is the judge. Their agreement becomes the verdict. This is why the title holds true. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost. The need to prove begins the trial. Consider a father making a decision for his household. If he speaks once and acts, the family adjusts. If he gathers everyone and explains at length why his decision is reasonable, fair, necessary, and considerate, something changes. He is now seeking consensus. He is now asking permission. The structure has inverted. The same happens in friendships, negotiations, leadership, even in love. The man who explains himself excessively reveals fear of disapproval. He shows that his identity depends on being understood. But being understood is not the same as being respected. Respect is born from consistency, not explanation. There is a difference between clarity and justification. Clarity is brief. Justification is defensive. Clarity states. Justification pleads. Most men confuse the two and wonder why they feel exhausted after every conversation. They are carrying their own authority like a burden instead of wearing it like bone. The anchor sentence is this: explanation is a quiet surrender. This does not mean becoming obscure or manipulative. It means learning when words are necessary and when they are a concession. A man of restraint speaks to transfer information, not to secure acceptance. He allows others to misunderstand him temporarily, trusting time to reveal alignment. He does not chase agreement. He lets agreement come to him, or not come at all. What happens when you stop explaining yourself? At first, discomfort. Others push. They ask for more. They test the boundary. They are used to you filling the space. When you refuse, the dynamic shifts. Some will respect it, some will leave. Both outcomes are instructive. Most never attempt this. They live in permanent defense. They narrate their motives. They justify their choices. They explain their past. They are always on the stand, always answering questions no one truly needed to ask. The man who has already won does not run a courtroom inside every conversation. He does not build cases for his own existence. He speaks, or he does not, and both carry weight, leaving the air around him slightly heavier as if something important was said even when nothing was spoken. Lesson 3. The third truth is harder to accept because it exposes a habit most men never question. There are two ways to exist in the world. One is to perform, the other is to be. The performing man is always aware of eyes on him, even when no one is watching. He adjusts his tone, his posture, his opinions, his stories. He curates himself like a product. He believes presence is something he must generate. Effort becomes his signature. Without realizing it, he lives on a stage that never closes. The silent man does not perform. He does not shape himself for an audience. He is not trying to be impressive, mysterious, dangerous, intelligent, or superior. He simply occupies his own space without asking how it appears from the outside. This is rare, and rarity is what creates gravity. The performing man cannot tolerate empty space. If a room grows quiet, he fills it. If a topic ends, he extends it. If attention drifts away, he pulls it back. His sense of existence depends on engagement. Without reaction, he feels invisible. So he speaks more, shows more, asserts more, proves more. The tragedy is that the harder he tries to be seen, the less he is remembered. Noise blends with noise. Performance blends with performance. The silent man is different. He does not rush to claim space. He does not chase attention. He allows gaps in conversation. He allows pauses after his words. He allows people to sit with what was said. This creates tension, and tension creates focus. People lean in. They wonder. They project depth where there is restraint. He is not trying to be interesting. He is allowing others to become interested. Most men fear this. They believe silence is vulnerability. They believe if they do not constantly signal value, they will be dismissed. This is the core wound behind the urge to prove oneself. The belief that worth must be continuously displayed, or it disappears. But worth that vanishes without display was never solid. It was always dependent on performance. Watch a man who has achieved something real, not fame, not noise, something concrete that took years. His movements are slower, his words fewer, his reactions measured. He does not need to announce his background. It leaks through his presence without effort. Meanwhile, the performing man recites his identity like a slogan: titles, ambitions, principles, philosophies. He wears them on the outside because there is no weight inside. The anchor sentence is this: performance is effort spent replacing substance. This distinction appears everywhere. In leadership, the performing leader calls meetings to display control. The silent leader speaks once, and action follows. In relationships, the performing man floods the other with promises, explanations, declarations. The silent man shows consistency and lets trust accumulate without speech. In conflict, the performing man raises volume and intensity. The silent man lowers both and becomes the center. The world trains men to perform. Social media rewards display. Modern work rewards visibility. Even personal growth spaces reward confession and vulnerability on command. But beneath all of this is the same fragile engine, a fear of being unnoticed, a fear that if you do not prove yourself, you will be nothing. Yet the man who stops performing does not become nothing. He becomes opaque, and opacity is power. When people cannot immediately read you, they cannot easily control you. When you do not reveal your identity through constant output, you decide when and where you are known. This is sovereignty, not secrecy. To move from performance to presence, something must die. The reflex to entertain, the reflex to justify, the reflex to decorate your words. At first, this feels like social risk, like standing without armor. But armor that must be displayed is not armor. It is costume. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because you have accepted the role of performer in a world that respects the unmoved observer. The silent man does not chase the stage. The stage rearranges itself around him, leaving him standing where he always was, unchanged, unannounced, unbothered, as if he never needed to arrive at all. Lesson 4. The fourth truth reveals how real power behaves when it no longer seeks permission. Power that needs applause is not power. It is performance wearing a crown. Genuine power does not announce itself. It does not introduce itself. It does not insist on recognition. It sits in the room and lets others adjust their breathing around it. You have witnessed this, even if briefly. A man enters a space. He does not speak immediately. He does not scan faces for approval. He does not hurry to establish his credentials. He simply takes his place. Others begin to shift. Conversations soften. Attention reorganizes itself without request. Nothing was demanded. Nothing was proven. And yet, the hierarchy is quietly rewritten. Contrast this with the man who needs to demonstrate authority. He raises his voice slightly too early. He references his experience. He signals importance through volume, speed, insistence. He wants to be seen as strong, but power that must be displayed is already compromised. It is reacting, not resting. It is pushing, not pulling. Most men misunderstand dominance. They believe it is force. It is not. Force is compensation. The man who must push is the man who does not own the ground beneath him. True power is gravitational. It draws instead of drives. It influences without persuasion. It changes the room without explanation. This is why the urge to prove yourself is fatal. The moment you attempt to convince others of your strength, you confirm you are unsure of it yourself. Power does not require witnesses to exist. It does not improve through recognition. It simply is. And because it is, others recognize it without being asked. Look at how this applies in daily life. A disagreement arises. One man escalates. He lists reasons. He sharpens his tone. He builds a case. He wants to win. The other man lowers his voice. He speaks fewer words. He allows silence to stretch. Soon, the first man feels exposed, even if his argument is logical. He feels he is fighting air. He is performing combat, while the other remains still. Observers will remember the still one. In leadership, the same pattern repeats. The insecure leader schedules frequent meetings to assert control. He reminds people of his position. He defends decisions preemptively. He believes visibility equals authority. Meanwhile, the secure leader is not always present, but when he appears, movement follows. He does not need to manage perception. Perception organizes itself around him. Even in relationships, power reveals itself through restraint. The man who fears losing someone will over-explain, over-give, over-announce his value. The man who is certain of himself does not cling. He does not demand reassurance. He does not audition for affection. He allows choice to exist, and because of this, he is chosen more often. The anchor sentence is this: power never proves itself. It allows itself to be noticed. Silence is not emptiness here. Silence is confidence without performance. It says, I am not fighting for position, and because you are not fighting, you are not losing. Most men never experience this. They exhaust themselves trying to maintain an image. They monitor every reaction. They adjust every sentence. They live as public relations managers for their own identity. When you step out of this, something unfamiliar happens. You stop needing to control how others perceive you. You stop correcting misunderstandings that do not matter. You stop offering evidence of worth. At first, this feels like risk, but soon you realize that what disappears was never real power. It was negotiation. The man who has already won does not negotiate his place. He does not bargain for respect. He does not require applause to confirm existence. He lets others speak. He lets others assume. He lets others wonder. And in that space, his position settles without effort, like stones sinking to the bottom of water, untouched, inevitable, unchallenged, leaving no ripples behind, only depth that remains long after the surface returns to calm. Lesson 5. The fifth truth is uncomfortable because it points directly at the hidden engine behind the need to prove yourself. Insecurity is always louder than it appears. It disguises itself as confidence, ambition, passion, certainty, intensity. But beneath the surface, it is always the same motion, a man trying to outrun the suspicion that he is not enough. The need to prove is not a strategy. It is a symptom. The insecure man is not necessarily shy. Often, he is the most vocal in the room. He dominates conversations. He offers opinions before they are asked for. He reacts quickly, laughs loudly, interrupts often, explains eagerly. From the outside, he seems sure of himself, but watch carefully. Every action is a response. He is not leading the rhythm. He is chasing it. He is trying to stay ahead of being questioned. Certainty that is real is quiet. It does not rush. It does not pile words on top of words. It does not fear the pause after a sentence. False certainty fears silence, because silence reveals the hollow space underneath. So the insecure man keeps speaking. He keeps signaling. He keeps proving. He builds a wall of sound so no one hears the echo inside him. This pattern begins early. A boy who had to earn attention becomes a man who performs for recognition. A boy who was compared becomes a man who competes in every conversation. A boy whose worth was questioned becomes a man who cannot let a challenge pass without defense. Years later, he believes this is simply his personality. He does not see the chain. He only feels the pressure. Look at how this appears in achievement. Two men can reach the same position. One arrived through patience, repetition, long discipline. The other arrived chasing validation. When both are questioned, their responses are different. The first man answers briefly or not at all. He has lived the work. He does not need to advertise it. The second man lists, explains, reminds, insists. He needs the room to agree so he can breathe again. His identity is externally powered. Even pride can be a disguise. The man who says, "I don't care what anyone thinks," while constantly showing how little he cares, is still performing. Indifference that must be displayed is not indifference. It is another costume. True detachment does not announce itself. It is noticed in what a man does not react to. The anchor sentence is this: insecurity always asks for witnesses. This is why the title cuts so deeply. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because the game you entered is not about strength. It is about dependence. You have accepted that others must certify your worth. Once that contract is signed, you are no longer free. You are manageable. You can be provoked. You can be baited. You can be controlled through doubt and praise. The world is full of men trapped here. They live in a constant cycle of display and exhaustion. They win arguments but feel hollow afterward. They receive compliments but need the next one immediately. They achieve goals but feel anxious that someone will question their legitimacy. They are never at rest. They do not own their identity. They rent it from the crowd. To step out of this is not to become arrogant. Arrogance is just insecurity wearing armor. To step out is to remove the audience from your internal world, to accept that you may be misunderstood, that you may not be recognized, that you may not be applauded, and to remain unmoved by that possibility. When a man no longer needs witnesses to his worth, something shifts. He stops explaining, he stops proving, he stops performing. He begins to move through the world as if his place is already settled. Not because he believes he is superior, but because he has stopped outsourcing his identity. Most will never do this. The discomfort is too sharp. The withdrawal from validation feels like starvation at first. But beyond that hunger is a stillness most men never taste. A state where nothing needs to be added to the self, nothing needs to be announced, nothing needs to be defended. And in that stillness, the urge to prove dies quietly, without ceremony, without replacement, leaving a man who no longer asks the room who he is, and no longer waits for the room to answer. Lesson 6. The sixth truth is rarely spoken because it dismantles a comforting illusion. Recognition demanded is never the same as recognition earned. One is pulled from others, the other arrives on its own. The man who asks to be seen is never seen as he wishes. The man who does not ask becomes impossible to ignore. Most men spend their lives negotiating recognition. They remind people of their efforts. They hint at their sacrifices. They speak of their struggles. They reveal just enough to invite praise. When praise arrives, it feels good, briefly. Then the hunger returns, because recognition that must be requested is not respect. It is permission, and permission can be withdrawn at any time. Recognition earned behaves differently. It is slow. It accumulates quietly. It does not need to be explained because it is observed. It does not rely on storytelling because it is evidenced. The man who earns recognition does not track who notices him. He does not keep score. He continues his work with or without witnesses. Over time, others speak of him without his involvement. His name travels without him. This is the only recognition that has weight. The man who demands recognition is always present in his own narrative. He inserts himself. He frames his actions. He highlights his intentions. He edits perception. The man who earns recognition allows others to construct the narrative. He is not present in every retelling, and because of this, the story feels real. Look at any domain. The craftsman who speaks constantly about his craft is rarely the master. The master is found by those who seek him. The leader who reminds others he is the leader is already losing authority. The leader whose absence is felt does not need to declare himself. The man who insists on being appreciated will never be fully appreciated. The man who does not ask often is. This is not mysticism, it is pattern. Time has proven this rhythm again and again. Demanded recognition creates resistance. Earned recognition creates gravity. One feels forced, the other feels inevitable. The anchor sentence is this: what must be requested can never be owned. This is why the impulse to prove yourself is so costly. The moment you seek recognition directly, you forfeit the deeper version of it. You settle for applause instead of presence. You settle for attention instead of respect. You settle for being noticed instead of being remembered. Men who live this way become experts in perception management. They learn how to phrase things, how to frame stories, how to appear valuable. They become skilled performers, but they remain internally dependent. Their peace is always one reaction away from collapse. The alternative is quiet work, unadvertised effort, decisions made without audience, progress measured without announcement. This path feels thankless in the beginning. No one claps, no one comments, no one validates. And that is precisely why it builds something real, because it is no longer tied to reaction. Eventually, recognition comes, but when it arrives, it feels different. It does not inflate, it settles. It does not excite, it confirms. It does not demand repetition. It stands on its own. And because it was not chased, it does not control you. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because you chose recognition that must be asked for. The man who has already won works in silence, moves without announcement, accepts obscurity without complaint, and lets time introduce him long after he stopped introducing himself. Lesson 7. The seventh truth is structural. Every social environment has a hierarchy, spoken or unspoken. Most men pretend they are not part of one, yet spend their lives reacting to it. They watch who speaks first, who interrupts, who is listened to, who is ignored. They adjust accordingly. The need to prove yourself is always a response to perceived position. You only prove yourself when you believe you are beneath someone else in the invisible order. This is why proving yourself never elevates you. It confirms you are playing from below. A man at the top of a hierarchy does not campaign for his role. He does not distribute arguments for why he should lead. His behavior assumes position. Others either align or leave. The man who campaigns for position reveals he does not hold it. Social hierarchies are shaped by subtle signals: pace of speech, willingness to pause, comfort with silence, reaction to challenge, control of emotion. The man who feels the need to prove himself fails most of these tests simultaneously. He speaks too quickly. He fills every pause. He reacts immediately. He defends instantly. He shows emotional turbulence. Each response tells the room, "I am seeking stability from you." The man of restraint does the opposite. He slows the tempo. He allows space. He delays reaction. He does not correct every misinterpretation. He lets minor disrespect pass without registering it. This unsettles the room because he is not playing the same game, and the one who does not play cannot be ranked easily. Consider a confrontation. One man raises his voice. He presses forward. He lists points. He demands acknowledgement. The other man listens. He nods once. He speaks quietly. He does not escalate. He does not match energy. The first man believes he is winning. Observers know otherwise. The calm one controls the frame. The loud one is trapped inside it. Hierarchy is also tested in small interactions: waiting in line, being interrupted, being questioned, being ignored. The proving man responds to all of these. He asserts. He corrects. He ensures no slight goes unanswered. He believes this is strength, but strength that must respond to everything is fragile. It is dependent on constant enforcement. The man who has already won chooses his engagements. He does not respond to every provocation. He does not answer every challenge. He does not clarify every misunderstanding. He understands that attention is a resource. He spends it deliberately. Those who spend attention impulsively reveal that they are governed by their environment, not governing it. The anchor sentence is this: the man who reacts is ranked by the one who does not. This is why most men remain stuck. They believe dominance is about asserting. In reality, dominance is about not needing to. They believe respect is earned by demanding it. In reality, respect is earned by not requiring it. They believe position is secured through visibility. In reality, position is secured through consistency. Once you see this, you begin to observe rooms differently. You notice who is performing, who is explaining, who is defending, who is seeking agreement. And you notice who is still, who is slow, who is sparing with words, who seems to occupy space without effort. The hierarchy reveals itself clearly. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because you accepted a lower role and began climbing a ladder that is not needed. The man who stands where he is without proving, without explaining, without performing, is already where others are trying to reach, unmoved, unhurried, unaffected, leaving the structure intact simply by refusing to fight for it. Lesson 8. The eighth truth exposes the real cost of living in performance mode. A man who constantly proves himself is never at rest. Even in moments that should be quiet, his mind rehearses. What to say next, how to respond if questioned, how to defend his choices. how to maintain the image he has constructed. He is never simply present. He is always preparing for a trial that may never come. This is not ambition. This is captivity. Performance mode creates a split life. There is the life you live and the life you display. The displayed life must always look coherent, justified, impressive, reasonable. The lived life is messy, uncertain, evolving. The performing man spends more energy managing the displayed life than building the lived one. He edits himself in real time. He filters every impulse. He measures every word. Over time, he forgets which part is real. This is why proving yourself feels exhausting. It is continuous labor, no finish line, no moment of arrival. Even when you succeed, you must explain why you deserve the success. Even when you are right, you must convince others of your rightness. Even when you are strong, you must show it. The effort never ends because the foundation is unstable. It depends on external agreement. The cost is not only internal, it shapes relationships. The performing man does not meet others directly. He meets them through his image. He anticipates how they will see him. He tailors himself to fit their expectations. This prevents intimacy. No one can touch what is always adjusting. No one can trust what is always curated. Even admiration becomes hollow because it is unclear what is being admired. Real connection requires stillness. It requires a man who can be seen without immediate modification, but the proving man cannot allow this. If someone sees a flaw, he covers it. If someone doubts, he rushes to correct. If someone misunderstands, he intervenes. There is no room for the slow discovery of character. Everything is pre-packaged and presented. The irony is that the performing man often believes he is being authentic. He speaks openly. He shares stories. He reveals selected vulnerabilities. But this, too, is performance. Authenticity that is deployed strategically is not authenticity. It is theater. The anchor sentence is this: performance steals the right to simply exist. A man living this way ages quickly, not in years, but in wear. His nervous system never fully downshifts. His attention is always partially outward, scanning reactions. He struggles to sit in silence. He struggles to do nothing. He struggles to be alone without stimulation. Because without an audience, he does not know who he is. To step out of performance mode is not to become passive. It is to reclaim energy. When you stop proving, you recover immense bandwidth. Words become fewer but sharper. Decisions become simpler. Interactions become cleaner. You no longer carry the weight of anticipated judgment. You no longer preemptively defend. You move and let the world respond or not. Most men resist this because they fear disappearance. If they stop performing, will anyone notice them? This question reveals the depth of the dependency, but disappearing from the performance arena is not vanishing. It is becoming harder to access, harder to read, harder to manipulate. It is stepping behind the curtain while others continue acting on stage. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because you traded your own center for a role. You became a character in other people's minds instead of a man rooted in his own ground. The exit is quiet. No announcement, no declaration, just a gradual refusal to play, to posture, to convince, leaving behind a presence that no longer flickers with the crowd's attention, steady, self-contained, uninterested in applause. Lesson 9. The ninth truth is simple but ruthless. Dignity does not negotiate. The moment you bargain for respect, you announce that you do not possess it. A man with dignity does not plead to be taken seriously. He does not explain why he deserves a place. He does not ask to be acknowledged. He stands, and his stance speaks before his mouth opens. Most men misunderstand dignity. They believe it is a moral decoration, a virtue, something polite. It is none of these. Dignity is structural. It is the refusal to enter transactions that reduce your worth to debate. The proving man walks into every room ready to trade arguments for recognition. The dignified man walks in already whole. He is not for sale. Watch how quickly dignity is lost in conversation. Someone doubts you. The impulse rises to clarify, to justify, to correct their perception. In that instant, a line appears. Cross it, and you are negotiating your value. Stay behind it, and the doubt remains theirs to carry, not yours to fix. This feels counterintuitive. We are taught that respect must be earned through explanation, transparency, and effort. But there is a distinction between earning through action and bargaining through speech. Action earns, bargaining cheapens. The man who says, "Let me explain why you should respect me," has already accepted disrespect as his starting point. A man with dignity understands something subtle. Not everyone must understand him. Not everyone must approve of him. Not every misjudgment needs correction. To insist otherwise is to grant strangers authority over your identity. Dignity is the boundary that says, "Your perception of me is not my responsibility." This is difficult in a world addicted to commentary. Every silence is seen as an invitation to speak. Every misunderstanding is seen as a problem to solve. Every lack of recognition is seen as injustice. The proving man lives in constant repair, repairing impressions, repairing assumptions, repairing doubts, repairing status. He is a caretaker of other people's opinions. The dignified man is not careless. He listens, he observes. He chooses when speech is necessary, but he does not scramble to be correctly perceived. He does not rush to clear every shadow. He trusts that time reveals what words cannot. And if someone never sees him clearly, he lets that remain. His center does not depend on their vision. The anchor sentence is this: dignity refuses to bargain. This changes everything. In work, you no longer over-explain your competence. You do the work and let outcomes speak. In relationships, you no longer plead to be valued. You show up as you are and let choice unfold. In conflict, you no longer fight for the last word. You state your position and leave space after it. In public, you no longer craft every move for perception. You act from principle, not performance. Many will misunderstand this as arrogance, but arrogance is loud. It needs to be noticed. Dignity is quiet. It does not require recognition. It simply does not kneel. The arrogant man must be seen above others. The dignified man does not think in vertical comparisons at all. He stands where he stands. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because you entered a market where worth is haggled over. The man with dignity never enters that market. He walks past the stalls of validation, past the shouting vendors of attention, past the scales of public opinion, carrying nothing to sell, nothing to trade, nothing to explain, his presence intact, his value unpriced, his silence unbroken. Lesson 10. The 10th truth closes the circle. There is a posture in this world that cannot be threatened because it does not depend on victory. It is the posture of a man who has already won, not in the sense of trophies, wealth, or recognition, but in the sense that he no longer needs to prove anything to exist as himself. He has crossed a line most never see. On one side, men perform, explain, justify, and defend. On the other, a man simply stands. The man who has already won does not rush. He does not chase. He does not grasp. He moves with the tempo of someone who is not afraid of being left behind, because he is not trying to arrive anywhere in the eyes of others. He is already home in himself. This is why attempts to provoke him fail. Insults slide off. Challenges fall flat. Doubt is met with stillness. There is no surface to hook into. Most men cannot imagine this state. They believe confidence must be expressed, power must be demonstrated, value must be asserted. They think a man who does not display his worth will be erased. But the opposite happens. The man who does not advertise becomes difficult to categorize. And what cannot be categorized cannot be dismissed easily. Mystery is not created by performance. It is created by restraint. Look at how this man behaves in practical life. In a disagreement, he does not fight to dominate. He states his view and allows space. If the other insists, he does not escalate. He lets the insistence expose itself. In a room full of ambition, he does not compete for center. He sits where he is and lets ambition exhaust itself around him. In a culture of self-promotion, he remains unadvertised, and paradoxically, he becomes the one people seek. This is not strategy. Strategy still aims at effect. This is position, a settled inner location that does not change with circumstance. The man who has already won does not need to win arguments because his identity is not built from them. He does not need to be right in every exchange. He does not need to be admired. He does not need to be understood. He does not need to be followed. And because he needs none of these, he often receives them without pursuit. The proving man reads this and tries to imitate it. He adopts silence as a tactic. He withholds words to appear powerful. But his silence is tense. It seeks reaction. It is still performance. The real difference is internal. The man who has already won is not waiting for effect. He is simply not interested in proving existence. This is the final consequence of the title. If you need to prove yourself, you've already lost, because proving is effort spent chasing legitimacy. The man who has already won does not chase. He does not demand the world confirm him. He moves as if confirmation is unnecessary, and because of that, he is untouched by approval and untouched by rejection. The anchor sentence is this: the man who has already won does not seek a rival. He wakes, works, speaks, decides, rests, and walks without audience in his mind. He is not performing strength. He is not performing wisdom. He is not performing detachment. He is simply no longer governed by the need to be seen. And in a world addicted to visibility, this is the rarest form of power. Most will never step here. The noise is too seductive, the applause too sweet, the fear of being nothing too sharp. But for the few who let the proving die, what remains is not emptiness. It is solidity, a presence that does not flicker, a voice that does not strain, a gaze that does not seek, a man who does not ask the room who he is because he is already standing, already rooted, already complete, and therefore cannot be lost at all. If these words resonated, don't rush to react. Sit with them. Let them work. If you choose to stay in this space, subscribe, not for motivation, not for comfort, for clarity. And if something here struck a nerve, say one sentence in the comments, not to prove anything, simply to mark that you were here. Then return to your life, quietly, without performance.